What's up Multiverse, Dr. Dave here, welcome to the Geek Lounge. So yesterday's video was my Funko Pop hunt and haul from AnimeCon UK 2023. I thought for today's video we'll do a little review of the con. It's actually something I've been thinking about doing for a while, a review of each con I attend. I attend plenty of cons throughout the year, and I figured once it's all said and done I could do a little review for you guys to see if you would like to attend in the future, you know, discussing things like prices, guests, panels, you know, all the brands, all the stores that are there, cosplay, all that jazz that makes up a cool Comic-Con. And so this was actually the first AnimeCon UK. It took place from the NEC in Birmingham this past weekend, the 17th and 18th of June 2023. And for the most part, I actually had a really good time, though. It was a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. We'll discuss that a little bit more in a few minutes. But we have to be fair, it was the very first con, and that's one of the things I felt they didn't do such a great job of was advertising. Like, I didn't find this con on any type of social media. I was actually searching for Miley Flanagan appearances because I knew she was in Dublin before, and then I actually came across, I can't remember the website, it's like you can search for certain guests and see where they are. Predominantly, of course, it's all in like the US and Canada, but it will show like a few cons in the UK, especially if their name has like been associated with the con. And then I actually saw this one in Birmingham, AnimeCon UK, and I was like, what on earth is this? Like, I found it at the beginning of the year, and yeah, it had Miley Flanagan was going to be there, and then I clicked into their website, and they also had Zach Aguila and Ryan Colt Levy, and I was like, man, that's like a pretty good guest list. What is this con all about? And so I went and followed all their social medias, but they didn't have a large following. Again, we have to be fair, the very first con, right? But I don't know, like the advertising, maybe it needed more word of mouth, but I just feel it didn't get out to enough people. And yeah, in the end, like, it maybe was a lot smaller than it could or should have been, but I've said it already 2 or 3 times, the very first one, they're like testing the waters, right? And the con will definitely be coming back next year. More on that though at the end of the video. I think the very first thing to look at any con is pricing. How much is the ticket? Do you get your bang for your buck, right? Especially at this point in time here in the UK, because we are still in this cost of living crisis. And so the AnimeCon UK ticket prices are still available online. Obviously you can't purchase them because the con is now done. So they had the VIP pass, which was actually £50. So that covered you for all the weekend. You got this free tote bag. I'll actually show it to you guys in a second because I did actually get the VIP pass. And you also got like 30 minutes entry onto the floor. More about that in a minute as well. So the general weekend ticket price was then £40. There's like plus booking fee as well. And then the day tickets were actually £20. If we then compare this to other Comic-Cons, let's take MCM for example, which has been accused for catering more and more to anime audiences. They have their Friday entry ticket is £30, that's priority entry at 10 AM. General entry is actually £21. Saturday priority entry 36, Saturday general entry 28, Sunday priority entry 33, Sunday general entry 22. Weekend tickets is £95 for priority entry. Actually, I think the weekend ticket, yeah, it is only like priority entry, but you have to remember MCM is actually 3 days. And I figured as one more comparison, we'll take a Monopoly Events con. I've gone with Liverpool, which takes place later this year in October. So their weekend prices, I mean, there is the Diamond Pass, which is very expensive at £208 for the weekend entry, but that allows you to skip the queue. Weekend early entry is £51.70. That includes the booking fees. There are, of course, prices, like different prices for kids of all ages, etc, etc. And then if we have the Saturday and Sunday, so the day prices, the early, well, you've got the Diamond Pass is £138 for the day. You've then got the early entry at £28.60, and you've also got the standard entry at £23.10. And so with that, I guess you can say that AnimeCon UK ticket prices were a little bit high, especially for the size of the con, at least if we're comparing to MCM and Monopoly, but I guess they are much more established. Because the daily general admission prices for both MCM and Monopoly events aren't that much higher, and there's tons more to do there. There's so much bigger cons. I mean, like I said, they have been established for a bit longer, but you probably do get more bang for your buck with those cons. But again, I have to say it, this was the very first AnimeCon UK. And I, of course, hope this con grows for the future. I want to see more guests, more stores, bigger space, more everything, to be perfectly honest. I just don't want to see those prices increase too much, because then when you compare to those other cons, you're like, is it really worth it? So as I mentioned earlier, I did buy the VIP pass for £50 plus booking fee. The general weekend admission ticket was £40 plus booking fee. So what did that extra £10 get me? Well, it should have got me on the show floor 30 minutes early. You actually got priority entry at 9:30 AM, whereas general admission was 10 a.m. They did also give you this tote bag, which for the most part is pretty cool with this Crunchyroll design. Crunchyroll were one of the main brands at the con. And then in terms of the contents inside, guys, now I'm pretty sure, I haven't gone back to look at it, but I'm pretty sure they mentioned there was going to be a print with this thing, and there's definitely no print inside of here. So they did actually give you a 30-day free trial to Crunchyroll, which I think is pretty cool. I do sadly already have that though. They then gave you some of these Crunchyroll stickers, which again are pretty cool, I guess. Like, is that the Crunchyroll mascot? I've never been too sure. I certainly don't recognize her from an anime, but I can't really say I'm like the true anime king. There's still tons of things I need to watch. What else did we get? We got this Player Ammo Fruit Punch, pardon me, natural flavors and colors. I know these guys were there as well. They were selling something to do with Bucky. Is that like I think it's like a fighting anime. It's still on my list to watch, to be perfectly honest. I think they had like cups and things of that franchise that you could buy, and then obviously you stick your like flavored powder in there, whatever that stuff is. We also got this I guess a keyring. Again, is that like the Crunchyroll mascot? Is that who that's supposed to be? That's fairly cool. And the last thing that was in here was actually these things. I've seen them a lot at cons. They're like this kind of flavored water with like a Pokemon design. So this one, if you guys, I don't know if you can make that out on the front there, sea salt cheese flavor sparkling water. Sea salt, I mean, sea salt chocolate, amazing. Sea salt cheese, I'm not too sure. I am going to give it a try though, because I'm quite intrigued to see how it tastes. So, it's one of these like pull rings actually. It's quite interesting. So, oh, good. Smell wise, you could kind of smell the cheese, to be honest. Yeah, the smell doesn't like do it for me too much, but let's go. You know what, it's actually not too bad. It's weird. You kind of get like this caramel style aftertaste, I feel, a little bit, but you like the first, as it hits my tongue, I feel like I do taste the cheese. It's kind of weird. It's better than I thought it was going to be, to be honest, but yeah, it's probably something I definitely, well, I say probably, it's definitely something I wouldn't buy. And if you guys were wondering whether they did passes or wristbands, they did indeed do passes, which makes me very, very happy. It's something you can keep as like a memento from the con. Those wristbands, I just hate them so much. I really wish Monopoly events would actually do passes. They may say we have to increase our prices or something like that, but I don't know, I just really wish they would do passes. So they did a weekend pass Saturday and a Sunday one. I can't really remember if there were like significantly different designs. You did also get the choice, I think it was like 3 lanyards. I went with this kind of black and red one. I think there was like a white and red one, and there was definitely a third one, but I can't remember which it was. But yeah, sadly no VIP pass. That's because they gave you this wristband if you were a VIP. I think that's gone into focus there for you guys. So yeah, just this gold wristband, which was a little bit annoying to wear, to be perfectly honest, but this, like, it kind of reminded me of like if you guys have ever gone to a resort or something and you have to wear like a wristband so they know like if you go into a restaurant or you get free drinks or whatever, something like that. That's kind of what it reminded me of, because you could get I think 20% off the merch stand, which I didn't think was anything too crazy. Again, it is the first con. I think I've said that like 5 or 6 times now, so hopefully things will get better in the future. I think there were some other perks you could get. So yeah, if you wore your wristband, that's how people knew you were like a VIP, right? But this is the thing that then kind of was, let's say, disappointing right at the beginning of the show. And so I got to Birmingham International at just gone 9 o'clock, though it is about a 10-15 minute walk depending on where your hall is. Hall 9, if that means anything to anyone, that's where AnimeCon UK was. But yeah, it was a good 15 to 20 minute walk. I would say I got there like 9:15, and then they were like, yeah, VIPs, go over here to collect your tickets. There was actually no one there to hand out the tickets. We were looking at our watches, 9:30, people getting antsy in the queue saying we're supposed to be on the show floor now, we haven't even got our tickets. And then it was about 20 to 10 when someone finally did arrive. They started scanning the tickets, we got our passes, we got our wristbands. Actually, the lady that served me didn't even know she had to hand out a wristband. She had just arrived literally when I got to the front, and she apologized and said, yep, here's your wristband. Now what you guys need to do is head across to It was something sweet. I can't remember the exact name of it. I think maybe the after party may have, like the con after party may have taken place there. If we headed into there, you can pick up your tote bag, your freebies, etc, etc. So we all headed in, or at least when I headed in, there was already a queue in there, and I was like, okay, this seems a bit weird. There were 3 staff members just kind of standing there, and they were like, yeah guys, we're waiting for someone to come with the scanner so we can scan your tickets. And I was like, okay, seems a bit weird. So like 5 minutes went past, and I'm like looking at my pass. Let me just grab it once again, and I'm like, you know what, there's like nothing to scan here. They've already scanned our tickets, so we've already got our pass, we've already got our wristband. What is there to scan? So I asked the guy, and he just kind of went like that. I really don't know. Then one of the girls sent that guy and another girl away. She said, go and handle those, and I'll wait here. And so things, like, people are starting to get a bit antsy, right? It's now 9:45, almost 10 to 10, and we're like, hold on, we're supposed to be VIPs. Like, I was really thinking, should I just leave this tote bag and just go into the con? Because, like, I'm losing time here, something I've paid for, but then I'm like, I've also paid for this tote bag, essentially. So it was, like, a bit awkward, and the girl was like, yeah, I'm just waiting. Then another lady came in, and she was like, this really bossy lady, and she's like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you not handing out these bags? VIPs should have been on the show floor 20 minutes ago. And she was like, well, I'm waiting for someone to come with a scanner. And she's like, well, what are you scanning? They've got their passes, they've got their wrist, that's all they need to show. And she was like, well, I've been told I need green light from whoever, I guess one of the top guys. She's like, all right, let me get you this green light. She made a quick call. Like, big burly security guard came in, 'cause I think they were maybe like, oh, these people are getting a bit antsy here. Now, no one was like aggressive, no one was like pushy or anything like that, but definitely I think some anxiety was building, because we were like, well, a general admission now going to get in ahead of us, even though we've paid more money, yada, yada, yada. All these things you think of when you're going to a con. And then the security guard was like apologizing to everyone, and he was even saying like the organizers are a bit disorganized, essentially, right? Because apparently the main guys were all in a staff meeting, and you're like, well, how can they be in a staff meeting at 9:45, 10 to? It just, like, it seems so disorganized. And then finally we got this green light. They gave us the tote bags. Then we headed into the con, probably at like 10 to 5 to 10, to be honest, which you're like, well, you kind of paid for that priority entry. Yes, we got a tote bag, but as I said, there was like a print advertise originally that wasn't in there. I just kind of feel the whole VIP thing was a little bit meh. But then I did then hear that they actually had issues scanning general admission tickets as well. So they were then delayed, which, like, no one was a winner here. Do like the VIP people who pay for those tickets, do they win just because general admission also got to enter later? Like, no one kind of won there. It was like very disorganized in the beginning. And that actually leads me onto the guest list. Now, everyone will always have different reasons for attending a Comic-Con. Mine personally is to meet guests, to get Funko Pops signed, and then look around stores, maybe do some Funko Pop hunting, buy some statues. If there's anything cool I want to grab, that's kind of what I go to cons, and just to really enjoy the whole atmosphere, especially when it's something like anime. And although AnimeCon UK's first ever guest list was a little bit small, it was actually fire, at least in my opinion. The headline guests were Miley Flanagan, of course, the longtime voice of Naruto, one of my favourite animes. In fact, it's my joint favourite anime, if you were wondering, with One Piece. They had Zach Aguilar, of course, most famous for playing Tanjiro in Demon Slayer, Genos in One Punch Man, David in Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and the other kind of headline act was Ryan Colt Levy, who's become mega famous after playing Denji in Chainsaw Man last year. And the rest of the guests included some more Demon Slayer voice actors. We have Landon McDonald, who of course voiced Enmu, Brianna Knickerbocker, who voices Kanao, as well as some characters from Genshin. In fact, I think loads of voice actors. Zach Aguilar may have even done a character from Genshin. There was 2 others, kind of smaller, lesser known voice actors, pardon me, from Genshin. I can't remember their names. I think it was Elsie Lovelock, and I can't remember the other one. I do apologize. I've never played Genshin, so I don't really know too much about it at all. We also had Drew Breedlove, who voiced one of the characters in Blue Lock. Again, I haven't watched Blue Lock just yet. I do want to. Of course, a huge football fan, so we'll get round to that eventually. And then there was Mela Lee, who I think has also voiced a character in Genshin, but I know she voices Tiki in Miraculous and Ladybug. She did the white-haired girl in the final selection guides from Demon Slayer. But yeah, that was kind of it in terms of the guest list. So fairly small, like I said, but I think a pretty good start for the very first con, especially those headline guests. As I said, I love Naruto, I love Demon Slayer, and I love Chainsaw Man, so it was really cool getting to meet all of those guys. But there was once again an issue on the Saturday morning with the scanning of tickets. So Miley Flanagan actually arrived before any other guests on the Saturday. It was really cool. She was like taking charge, moving tables and whatnot, because I didn't think they had too much space either. And I was like, yeah, the Hokage has spoken, you know, let's go for it. A couple of people laughed, found it quite funny. And yeah, she then kind of sat down, and then other guests kind of started pouring in here and there, like handlers. I call them handlers. I'm not too sure if it's like agents or, you know, if there is a more correct term, but someone that obviously travels with the guests from the States, and they're the one essentially handling all the sales and things, right? So Zach's handler was there. I went to Zach very first. I did Miley the second day. And they then had this issue, like, we're waiting for someone to come and scan tickets. And Miley and her handler were like, well, is this necessary? They just show us the ticket and then we're done. But they had, for whatever reason, they had to scan the tickets. I don't really know the reason for it. Seems a bit weird to me. I feel that's something that can be a lot better. Or just have the person with the scanners, like, there, like, right at the beginning, or give the scanners to the handlers, which is something they didn't do, which I then found really weird. So Miley, what she did was separate her lines for people paying cash and then people who were prepaid to have their tickets scanned right. But there was literally like 5 or 6 people who were paid or wanting to pay cash, and she like got through them pretty quickly. And it's like, well, we're now waiting for scanners. And then finally people arrived, but it was still then really weird because like they were scanning your tickets. So scan, 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 scan. But then you get up to the table and it's like, well, what do you have? And it's like, well, my ticket's been scanned. And I had like the conversation, I think her name was Vanessa, the handler for Zach. And I was like, yeah, it's a bit weird to me. Like, how do you guys now know what we've paid for? Whether it's a recording, an autograph and a selfie, you know, all of the like little things that they offer here. So I thought it's really weird because, you know, especially if you've got like 10, 15, 20, like Zach's line actually went probably easily like a good 100 or plus people on the set. Well, he meant way over 100 people, but they probably had a good 70 to 80 people at least in his line at one time. And when you're thinking they've already scanned the guy number 60, like they're way far away. The handler's never going to hear what's been scanned or what's been done. So I kind of feel that that person is the one who should be in charge of scanning the tickets. So I had to show my tickets to her again, even though I'd already shown them to someone to be scanned, so she could do like the 4 autos and the 1 selfie. If you guys are interested, I did show those off though in yesterday's video. So again, in terms of organization, that can be handled a lot better. The whole scanning process, I feel, like I said, just give the scanner to the handler, the person who's at the table. Scan, 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 done. Don't have someone go and scan the whole line and then they have to show their tickets again so the person knows what they paid for. That to me is just a little bit silly. And make sure the scanners are in place straight away as soon as the guests arrive. Yes, guests aren't there on the floor immediately when you get in. Like, they always arrive. I've typically seen it maybe an hour after the show starts. That's when guests start arriving to do signings and things. So you're always going to be queuing for an hour, especially if you're one of those priority entry people. But like, you can have the scanners there before the guests arrive. Like, I don't feel it's particular rocket science, to be honest, but again, there were always going to, like, it's the first con, right? I've said it several times, there were always going to be teething problems, and they just had a few that probably knocked a point off for me in terms of my final score, which I'll let you guys know at the end of the video. And just a quick comment on guest prices. I actually found them to be pretty reasonable, but to be fair, this is nothing the con actually controls. It's normally the guest who sets their price. Yes, they may take a booking fee or something along those lines, depending on what has been negotiated between the guest and the con. One thing though I will say is that I was the first person in the queue for Zach Aguilar. They then asked if a autistic gentleman could go in ahead of me, which I said no problem. So technically I was second in the queue, but he wasn't charging for like inscriptions or quotes. So I got all my quotes done by him, which was really, really cool. But I did then notice the following day they were charging £10 for inscriptions. I think like Brianna started to, well, I know she started to charge, I don't know whether she was charging for quotes to begin with, but she certainly did when I went to take my Canal Pop to get up signed. She was charging £15 for a quote. She also actually charged more for a Funko Pop than, like, if you got something else signed, it was cheaper, whereas a Funko Pop action figure, I've seen that at a lot of cons as well, to be honest. They're kind of considered more premium items, so some people do charge more for that. You know, again, that's a guest thing. That's not up to the con itself, so you can't really ever blame the con for that. That's purely up to the guest. So like that to complain about the prices being online, because I saw a lot of people saying the prices that were advertised online to the prices that were at the show were like a little bit different. I saw a few people complain about it. That's always going to be a bit difficult, to be honest, because the con has kind of not too much control over the pricing of the guests, like what they're going to add in. I've seen it at MCM before. Kellen Goff started adding a cost for inscriptions later on. People had told me he wasn't initially charging for it, and then I think he was charging like £15 extra for like inscriptions and quotes. It probably has happened at Monopoly in the past as well, someone trying to add different things, upgrades, etc, etc. So with those, I don't think you can blame the con too much. As I said earlier, the con was a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. I often like to do Funko Pop hunts, and they only had 3 main booths there. Persona Toys, who I always love to visit, Vaulted Toys, who I see everywhere as well, and I always forget the third name of the other booth, who I also see everywhere. There were kind of little other stores as well that had like a few Funko Pops, but they were the main ones. And then all the other stores were things like these, I don't know if there's a good term to use for them, all the small stores who will sell things like keys, chains and stickers, and you know, those small little cutesy anime things. Obviously Artist Alley was pretty cool. There was a lot of cool artists there, to be honest, but I just kind of wanted more, to be honest. Like, I probably walked around the con by like 1 p.m. on the very first day. I'd probably seen everything, to be honest. So I just want to see more in the future, you know, more of these sorts of stores, certainly more Funko Pops for my liking, lots of statues and plushies and things. You always expect to see those, particularly at an AnimeCon. Main brands there they had were Crunchyroll, who was sponsoring the event, which is pretty cool. Obviously Crunchyroll, a big name in the anime community. I mean, it's the major streaming platform, right, for all things anime. They were screening things in a separate room, which was pretty cool. I actually didn't check any of them out, just because I'd pretty much seen most of them, to be honest. The one thing I was tempted by was on the Saturday evening before they closed, they were actually showing the first episode of the latest season of Demon Slayer, the Swordsmith Village arc, the first dubbed episode. But I was like, I want to wait till that all comes and watch it all, to be perfectly honest. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to go for it. But I thought that was a pretty cool thing to do. They had the like this big kind of catwalk, I guess. Well, I'm going to call it catwalk because they called it the cosplay catwalk when people walked out with their cosplay, like a big Crunchyroll banner with a bunch of the different shows that are on Crunchyroll as well. Speaking of cosplay, as always, fantastic cosplays there. I didn't mention, of course, there were cosplayer, like professional cosplayers there as guests as well. It's not something that I know too much about, to be honest. Something I can massively appreciate, you know, the work, the dedication that goes into it. Some people look absolutely amazing, some don't, but you know, what was that term I heard? It's cosplay, not cos work, right? Which I always found was very cool. Again, the one thing I would say though, not enough for me. Like, you go to MCM and yes, it's a much more bigger established con. We've already said that several times already, but you see tons more cosplayers there. So again, I'd like to see more. Maybe that had something to do with the advertising, pricing, who knows, right? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd always be interested. What do you guys go to cons for? Signings, cosplay, just have a good time, something like a good day out? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, one of the things people love to attend at cons are panels, where there are interviews with the guests, and there were of course panels at AnimeCon UK. And now the panels were hosted and conducted by the Anime Freshmen. I'll be perfectly honest with you guys, I had not heard of them. I believe they do a fortnightly podcast on all things anime, but I don't really listen to very many podcasts at all, so there's no surprise in that. Was I a fan of their style and how they did the panels? I have to say no. And that's not throwing any shade at them. From what I saw, they're pretty darn talented, they're very energetic, very passionate, and they definitely know their stuff about anime. It's more their kind of style that I personally was not a fan of. Like I said, they were very energetic, very passionate, but I felt like a little bit too loud. Like, I wouldn't say they like spoke over the guests, like interrupting them and things like that, but they kind of, I felt their voices were like overshadowing the guests sometimes. Like, some of them, not all of them, because there are 4 guys, like I feel a couple of them were better than the 2 others. I don't really remember any of their names or anything like that, to be perfectly honest though. But like, sometimes I just felt they were a bit too loud. It's like, kind of let the guests talk a bit. I felt sometimes it was like about them a bit too much. They like, some of the questions, they often ask this question about a ritual. Do you have a ritual, you know, to get into your character? And like, that could be it. That's the question, right? But they would then give several examples, like, you know, I can't even remember them off the top of my head. Do you take a drink? Do you do this? Like, do you do this? Like, do you do that? And I was like, wow, you've turned like a literal 2-second question into like a 10-second question. And they sort of did this, some of them did this like every single time. And you're like, it's kind of a bit rambling on. And look, hands up, I know I can ramble in my videos and it's something I want to try and get a little bit better at. But I think it's in a different context, right? If I ramble here on a pre-recorded video, but then rambling live, like, people are just going to get a bit frustrated. And I honestly was in listening to some of the panels. And then they kind of were there going, come on guys, we want the energy, yada, yada, yada. And one thing, like the American audience are always going to eat that stuff up, right? The UK audience, not so much. We're not the ones who go, rah, 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 yeah, you know, crazy at a cinema when you see like an awesome cameo at a Marvel movie, for instance, right? Or DC movie, etc., etc. Like, the Americans go crazy. I've been there. It was like open as well. There wasn't like a separate room, which I always find a little bit weird because sometimes it can be like hard to hear, but it's always going to be dependent on the space and the cost and things like that, right? So I do get it when it is like an open sort of panel, like a main stage type thing. But they like had introductions, at least for some of the panels I saw, for themselves, and you're like, do you guys really need to introduce yourselves? It was kind of like, look, don't get me wrong, especially being a YouTuber, I get the like whole self-promotion and everything, but sometimes I felt that went a bit too far. I know this sounds like I'm throwing shade. Do I sound jealous? Would I have loved to have done the panels myself, or at least some of them? Yes, I absolutely would. But yeah, I just felt their style and the way they did it wasn't necessarily for me. There were a couple others who were like a little bit more quiet, a little bit calmer. Maybe Gerd or Jerd was his name. I thought he was the best one, to be honest. He was in that footage I showed with during the Zach Aguilar panel. So yeah, I just would like to see maybe them not get one kind of group of guys just doing all the panels, like share it out a little bit with some other people. As I said, it would be a dream for me to do a panel. I just feel there's some things like, what could they have done better? Like, don't have to be so shouty. Yes, it's anime, so maybe they feel I will be a like shouty character. I still, like, there was a lot of things they were saying, guys, when we want questions, we want creative questions. We don't want you to ask, like, oh, how did you get into anime? What's your favorite color? And yada, yada, yada. Like, be more creative. And I kind of get that to an extent. But a lot of people who go to these panels are hoping that they can ask whatever the hell question they want, right? It's up to them. To me, like, if you want to ask that question, you can ask that question. Like, some people mistake that when you have like guest signing tables, you can't just go up and talk to the guest. You have to pay for something. You don't. Most guests will happily talk to you, especially if there's no one in their queue, right? But a lot of people don't know that. So when they go to the panels, they want to ask this sort of questions. So I'm like, people should be able to ask whatever question they want. Yeah, I don't know. I watched someone like SoCal Val who does all the Monopoly events things, and she's like, she'll have like one introduction, a little bit about herself, and then for the rest of the day, yeah, she comes on stage and says, hey, we're getting this panel going. And although like I definitely feel like I've seen her do an anime panel and you're like, she knows nothing about anime. She does her research though. And does she know about every single show and all of these things that she does, the panels for at those events? But she's just so good at doing it. She doesn't make it about herself. And I'm not necessarily saying that the anime freshmen made about themselves, but it still felt to me that there was some more self-promotion in there. Yeah, just a bit too noisy, saying, come on crowd, we want the energy. But it's like, well, you shouldn't have to ask for that. Do you know what I mean? That to me should be in your performance. The crowd should be getting going by things with your humor that you add in, but like trying to make it more about the guests. That's just my opinion. Like I said, I didn't want to throw shade at them. They're talented, the energy, the passion was there, the knowledge of anime. I don't doubt they have more knowledge than me of anime. I mean, I started watching anime 3-4 years ago, right? What, 3 years ago now, pandemic. They've probably been watching it their whole lives. So yeah, it's just, that was one of like my opinions really of the panels overall. I didn't particularly enjoy their style. We still got some funny moments and some cool answers from the guests. Don't get me wrong, you will always get that from the panels. But yeah, the hosting wise, I like for the future, like I said, it would be a dream for me to host a panel, but I'd love to maybe see a few different people rather than having that one kind of overall style of panel, if that makes sense. Let me know in the comments section below if anyone attended. Were you a fan of the anime freshman panels? And again, I probably do sound a bit like a hypocrite because I did certainly ramble on a bit there. Apologies for that, guys. But again, that live setting versus a pre-recorded video, I don't think I'd ramble on so much in a live kind of interview, right? But yeah, for the con overall, I would give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. If it wasn't for those sort of teething problems on the first day, yes, you may feel that's a bit harsh. It's the very first con, right? But yeah, that took some of the things away. Like I go to a lot of cons, so you just always have to be patient. You always have to be calm. And like generally I feel things will work out. Now I don't know, I haven't seen too many things about like disability access. I haven't seen too many comments like were there horrible staff, which I have seen with MCM. So I don't know what kind of went on with that. I'd be interested to know in the comments section below. Anyone who sadly is disabled, did you find it like was easy enough to attend? Were there issues? What things could be done better? And likewise with people who had you know, interactions with staff. The few interactions I had, I have to say, were pretty good. They were friendly for the most part. Some of them didn't know things too well, but you have to remember a lot of these guys are volunteers. They're not getting paid for this. It's not their like full-time job, right? So yeah, you always have to be a little bit courteous. Like I said, I've been to a lot of cons, so I kind of know. I've never volunteered, but I've been to a lot, so you kind of get the general gist that these guys, they don't work here. They're volunteers, so they're being told what to do rather than having any of the power to make decisions themselves, right? So often enough, they will have to go away and check and come back with an answer for you. Like some will just disappear because they get afraid and they don't want the confrontation and whatnot. And you're like, that's not the best, but it kind of is what it is. Like I said, let me know if you, like what your staff interactions were like as well if you did attend the con. And so then what is the future of AnimeCon UK? Well, they have already announced on their website that they will be returning in 2024. Now, I do believe that this, although it's like a UK-based company, I believe there are American backers. And I did actually speak to one of the American guys. He seemed to be like the main floor manager. Would that be the best word to use? He was the guy that came with the scanners, the guy who was kind of giving directions and things like that. And I said, like, what are your plans for the future to expand? And he said, yeah. He admitted like teething problems. He used that word as well. But he said they want to grow. He said the idea is maybe to take it on the road. They may not necessarily come back to Birmingham next year. He did say the only place they wouldn't go to would be London because there's too many Comic-Cons. And I thought, it's a little bit weird because in my opinion, Manchester actually has quite a lot of Comic-Cons as well. And so does Birmingham. And it's like Birmingham, like I was speaking to Dan from Persona Toys, one of the Funko Pop booths there. And he said he feels like the NEC is like perfect for this con. And I have to say, I do think Birmingham and especially the NEC is perfect for a lot of cons, to be honest. Like it's the Midlands, it's pretty central. Like I get it. People in Wales, Scotland, you know, Northern Ireland will be saying like, well, like, it's hard for us to get to and things. And I 100% get this. Look, I've been to Northern Ireland Comic Con. I would go to Wales and I would go to Scotland as well. I mean, I've never been to Scotland, can you believe it? But I definitely would attend Scotland Comic Con. I think they always get some amazing guests. But yeah, I find it a bit weird. Like Birmingham, as I said, especially the NEC, you come straight into Birmingham International. It's an easy transport link. And then you walk through to the NEC. It's pretty easy. I kind of feel Birmingham probably is best place, especially for the con that size. They can get to a hall, they can maybe go to a second hall if, you know, they expand even further. So I guess only time will tell, right? But I'm really happy we are getting this anime specific con, even though people saying like MCM is starting to cater more and more to anime. I definitely agree with that. I would love them to certainly get some other guests non-anime related, like bigger guests non-anime related. That's not throwing shade at any of the guests that they certainly have had in the last few years who weren't anime. But yeah, guys, let's see with 2024 what is going to become. I just want to see more guests, more of everything. Like I said, I want it bigger. I want to see more stores. I want to be able to walk around the whole day, like walk around the convention, see every single thing, and it take a whole day, not just a few hours. And well, there we go, guys. That is my review of the very first AnimeCon UK, and that is therefore going to do it for today's video. So first and foremost, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with me here on the Geek Lounge. It is very much appreciated. And I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If so, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Drop some comments below. Like I said, if you attended AnimeCon UK 2023, let me know your thoughts. And And as always, we've got plenty more content on the way for you guys. More Comic-Cons, more Funkos, figures, statues, Legos, more cards. Speaking of which, make sure you stay tuned for this Friday's video, guys. It's going to be a short one, but I will be discussing how you can win this Miley Flanagan signed Naruto Kaiu 20th anniversary promo card. I will be giving this away to one lucky winner. Details of that video will be coming on Friday, so make sure you stay tuned for that and more. What is the easiest way to stay tuned, you ask? It's very simple. Subscribe. Hit click, smash that subscribe button and enable those notifications so you don't miss out on any of that future content. Guys, thanks again for watching today's video, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace out, nerds!